described as the aristocrat of labor Zionism. 174. Labor Zionism originated in Eastern Europe. Socialist Zionists believed that centuries of oppression in anti-Semitic societies had reduced Jews to a meek, vulnerable, despairing existence that invited further antisemitism, a view originally stipulated by Theodore Herzl. 175, 176. They argued that a revolution of Jewish soul and society was necessary and achievable in part by Jews moving to Israel and becoming farmers, workers, and soldiers in a country of their own. Most socialist Zionists rejected the observance of traditional religious Judaism as perpetuating a diaspora mentality among the Jewish people, and established rural communes in Israel called kibbutzim. 177. The kibbutz began as a variation on a national farm scheme, a form of cooperative agriculture where the Jewish National Fund hired Jewish workers under trained supervision. The kibbutzim were a symbol of the second Aliyah in that they put great emphasis on communalism and egalitarianism, representing utopian socialism to a certain extent. Furthermore, they stressed self-sufficiency, which became an essential aspect of labor Zionism. 178, 179. Though socialist Zionism draws its inspiration and is philosophically founded on the fundamental values and spirituality of Judaism, its progressive expression of that Judaism has often fostered an antagonistic relationship with Orthodox Judaism. 179, 180. Labor Zionism became the dominant force in the political and economic life of the Yishuv during the British Mandate of Palestine and was the dominant ideology of the political establishment in Israel until the 1977 election when the Israeli Labour Party was defeated. The Israeli Labour Party continues their tradition, although the most popular party in the kibbutzim is Meretz. 181. Labor Zionism's main institution is the Histadrut, General Organization of Labor Unions, which began by providing strikebreakers against a Palestinian workers' strike in 1920 and until 1970 Esway's largest employer in Israel after the Israeli government. 182. Liberal Zionism. Kibbutz Nikiyo, female kibbutz members, in Mishmar Harim during the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. The kibbutz is the historical heartland of labor Zionism. General Zionism, or liberal Zionism, was initially the dominant trend within the Zionist movement from the First Zionist Congress in 1897 until after the First World War. General Zionists identified with the liberal European middle class to which many Zionist leaders such as Herzl and Chaim Weizmann aspired. Liberal Zionism, although not associated with any single party in modern Israel, remains a strong trend in Israeli politics advocating free market principles, democracy and adherence to human rights. Their political arm was one of the ancestors of the modern-day Likud. Kadima, the main centrist party during the 2000s that split from Likud and is now defunct, however, did identify with many of the fundamental policies of liberal Zionist ideology, advocating among other things the need for Palestinian statehood in order to form a more democratic society in Israel, affirming the free market, and calling for equal rights for Arab citizens of Israel. In 2013, Ari Shavitz suggested that the success of the new Yesh Atid party, representing secular, middle-class interests, embodied the success of the new General Zionists. 183. Dror Ziegerman writes that the traditional positions of the General Zionists' liberal positions based on social justice, on law and order, on pluralism in matters of state and religion, and on moderation and flexibility in the domain of foreign policy and security are still favored by important circles and currents within certain active political parties. 184. Philosopher Carlo Stranger describes a modern-day version of liberal Zionism, supporting his vision of knowledge nation Israel. rooted in the original ideology of hers and Ahad Haram, that stands in contrast to both the romantic nationalism of the right and the Netzi Israel of the ultra-Orthodox. It is marked by a concern for democratic values and human rights, freedom to criticize government policies without accusations of disloyalty, and rejection of excessive religious influence in public life. Liberal Zionism celebrates the most authentic traits of the Jewish tradition, the willingness for incisive debate, the contrarian spirit of Dafka, the refusal to bow to authoritarianism. 185, 186. Liberal Zionists see that Jewish history shows that Jews need and are entitled to a nation-state of their own. But they also think that this state must be a liberal democracy, which means that there must be strict equality before the law independent of religion, ethnicity or gender. 187. Revisionist Zionism. Zedev Jabotinsky, founder of Revisionist Zionism. Revisionist Zionists, led by Zedev Jabotinsky, developed what became known as Nationalist Zionism, whose guiding principles were outlined in the 1923 Iron Wall. In 1935 the revisionists left the World Zionist Organization because it refused to state that the creation of a Jewish state was an objective of Zionism. Jabotinsky believed that Zionism is a colonizing adventure and it therefore stands or falls by the question of armed force. It is important to build, it is important to speak Hebrew, but, unfortunately, it is even more important to be able to shoot, or else I am through with playing at colonization. Zev Jabotinsky, 188, 189, and that although the Jews originated in the East, they belonged to the West culturally, morally, and spiritually. Zionism was conceived by Jabotinsky not as the return of the Jews to their spiritual homeland but as an offshoot or implant of Western civilization in the East. This worldview translated into a geostrategic conception in which Zionism was to be permanently allied with European colonialism against all the Arabs in the Eastern Mediterranean. Avi Schlein, 190. The revisionists advocated the formation of a Jewish army in Palestine to force the Arab population to accept mass Jewish migration. Supporters of revisionist Zionism developed the Likud Party in Israel, which has dominated most governments since 1977. It advocates Israel's maintaining control of the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, and takes a hardline approach in the Arab-Israeli conflict. In 2005, the Likud split over the issue of creation of a Palestinian state in the occupied territories. Party members advocating peace talks helped form the Kadima Party. 191. Religious Zionism. Religious Zionism is an ideology that combines Zionism and observant Judaism. Before the establishment of the State of Israel, religious Zionists were mainly observant Jews who supported Zionist efforts to build a Jewish state in the land of Israel. One of the core ideas in religious Zionism is the belief that the ingathering of exiles in the land of Israel and the establishment of Israel is Achauta de Geula, the beginning of the redemption, the initial stage of the Geula. 192, after the Six-Day War and the capture of the West Bank, a territory referred to in Jewish terms as Judea and Samaria. Right-wing components of the religious Zionist movement integrated nationalist revindication and evolved into what is sometimes known as Neo-Zionism. Their ideology revolves around three pillars: the land of Israel, the people of Israel and the Torah of Israel. 193. Green Zionism. Green Zionism is a branch of Zionism primarily concerned with the environment of Israel. The only specifically environmentalist Zionist party is the Green Zionist Alliance. Non-Jewish support. Political support for the Jewish return to the land of Israel predates the formal organization of Jewish Zionism as a political movement. In the 19th century, advocates of the restoration of the Jews to the Holy Land were called restorationists. The return of the Jews to the Holy Land was widely supported by such eminent figures as Queen Victoria, Napoleon Bonaparte, 194, King Edward VII, President John Adams of the United States, General Smuts of South Africa, President Masaryk of Czechoslovakia, philosopher and historian Benedetto Cruz from Italy, Henry Dunant, founder of the Red Cross and author of the Geneva Conventions, and scientist and humanitarian Fridtjof Nansen from Norway. The French government, through Minister M. Cambon, formally committed itself to the renaissance of the Jewish nationality in that land from which the people of Israel were exiled so many centuries ago. 195. In China, top figures of the nationalist government, including Sun Yat-sen, expressed their sympathy with the aspirations of the Jewish people for a national home. 196. Christian Zionism. Martin Luther King Jr. was a notable Christian supporter of Israel and Zionism. 197. Some Christians actively supported the return of Jews to Palestine even prior to the rise of Zionism, as well as subsequently. Anita Shapira, a history professor emerita at Tel Aviv University, suggests that evangelical Christian restorationists of the 1840s passed this notion on to Jewish circles. 198. Evangelical Christian anticipation of and political lobbying within the UK for restorationism was widespread in the 1820s and common beforehand. 199. It was common among the Puritans to anticipate and frequently to pray for a Jewish return to the homeland. 200, 201, 202. One of the principal Protestant teachers who promoted the biblical doctrine that the Jews will return to their national homeland was John Nelson Darby. His doctrine of dispensationalism is credited with promoting Zionism, following his 11 lectures on the hopes of the Church, the John the Gentile given in Geneva in 1840. 203. However, others like C.H. Spurgeon, 204, both Horatius, 205, and Andrew Bonar, Robert Murray M. Cheyenne, 206, and J.C. Ryle, 207, were among a number of prominent proponents of both the importance and significance of a Jewish return, who were not dispensationalist. Pro-Zionist views were embraced by many evangelicals and also affected international foreign policy. The Russian Orthodox ideologue Hippolytus Utostansky, also known as the author of multiple anti-Semitic tracts, insisted in 1911 that Russian Jews should be helped to move to Palestine as their rightful places in their former Kingdom of Palestine. 208. Notable early supporters of Zionism include British Prime Ministers David Lloyd George and Arthur Balfour, American President Woodrow Wilson and British Major General Lord Wingate, whose activities in support of Zionism led the British Army to ban him from ever serving in Palestine. According to Charles Merkley of Carleton University, Christian Zionism strengthened significantly after the Six-Day War of 1967, and many dispensationalist and non-dispensationalist evangelical Christians, especially Christians in the United States, now strongly support Zionism. Martin Luther King Jr. was a strong supporter of Israel and Zionism. 197, although the letter to an anti-Zionist friend is a work falsely attributed to him. In the last years of his life, the founder of the Latter-day Saint movement, Joseph Smith, declared, "The time for Jews to return to the land of Israel is now." In 1842, Smith sent Orson Hyde, an apostle of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, to Jerusalem to dedicate the land for the return of the Jews. 209. Some Arab Christians publicly supporting Israel include U.S. author Nani Darwish, and former Muslim Magdi Alam, author of Viva Israel. 210, both born in Egypt. Bridget Gabriel, a Lebanese-born Christian U.S. journalist and founder of the American Congress for Truth, urges Americans to fearlessly speak out in defense of America, Israel and Western civilization. 211. Muslim Zionism. Israeli Druze scouts march to Jethro's tomb. Today, thousands of Israeli Druze belong to Druze Zionist movements. 212. Muslims who have publicly defended Zionism include Tawfiq Hamid, Islamic thinker and reformer, 213, and former member of Al-Jama'a al-Islamiyya, an Islamist militant group that has